Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Hill, Pender County Superintendent. As we continue to work through the ongoing state of emergency with COVID-19 and develop plans for restarting school in August, it is important that we approach this crisis as we have in the past, as a united community. As with past emergencies, we are collaborating with Pender government and emergency service entities to meet the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic, but it is equally important that we engage our families and community stakeholders. Today, we are introducing a way you can become more knowledgeable of the most recent information and requirements received from state leaders, along with local efforts to comply while still meeting the needs of our students and staff. A timeline of information documents and other media items can be found at our recently developed Restarting Together webpage. You will see this webpage advertised through yard signs and posters placed at local government and emergency service sites, as well as local grocery stores. Please visit this webpage often to see the latest state information available for schools and PCS plans. One of the first posts is a recent webinar with parents, teachers, elected officials, and government representatives. This webinar, which follows this introduction, will give you an overview of current COVID-19 state and local actions, as well as PCS work towards an opening plan. Additionally, the webinar will give you a good base of information prior to completing the PCS family survey that is being released during the week of July 13th. We strongly encourage you to complete the survey, as your input is extremely important to creating the best plans possible for our schools. Again, please visit the Restarting Together webpage, view our public presentations, and most importantly, participate in the feedback survey. Thank you for your continued support as, again, we as Pender County community overcome our latest challenge. Hello everyone, we appreciate you guys taking time out today to join us on this webinar. What we're hoping to do is give you kind of the background on what's going on as far as entry into the school system for 2021 school year. Just as a couple of reminders, we are in a state of emergency. It hasn't gone away. And I think you'll see that as we do the presentation here today and try to collect some feedback. A couple of things you need to remember about what's going on in our district is that currently we've capped 10,000 students. If you figure those students both have two parents that made them, that's 30,000 people. You're already at almost half the population of this county. Half of America is divorced. So basically you're up to 40,000 plus, not even counting grandparents or guardians. There's only 60 to 70,000 or so people in this county. So we're touching almost every household with this. So at the point of everything we're talking about is that this is not a snow day, hurricane day, ice day call by the school system. This is an ongoing state of emergency for this county. And we are so appreciative that we've received support from local government and emergency services. They see value in that. They see that we need to work together and walk through this year hand in hand with our community. And I think you'll see why today as we go through our topics. We'll cover several things from the beginning to the end. Dr. Aiken and Curriculum and Instruction Department has been the lead on this. They've been to not only state but regional meetings consecutively. We're seeing what other counties are doing, what people are running into, but what you'll find is a lot of this is at the mercy, I guess, of whatever that comes down from Raleigh, from our governor and our General Assembly before we know how to start. But just understand, how we start is just how we start. This is, like I said, this is triage every day. It is a state of emergency, and just because we start on the plan doesn't mean we won't change. And it'll be based on whatever happens in our schools and then whatever we decide as a community working with DHHS and our other partners what we need to do. So we were hoping to pull you together today to talk to you about where we're at, what's happening, and start talking with everyone in the community about how we need to get through this together. So I'll decrease and allow Dr. Aiken to pick it up and kind of walk us through where we're at.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. For everyone online, just to introduce myself, my name is Dr. Charles Aiken. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for Pender County Schools. Thank you, everybody who was able to make it. You represent a wide number of representatives and agencies and perspectives from across Pender County. Mr. Riley, I think, is going to allow me to kind of share the screen and go through a quick presentation with everyone. And one of the very first slide that you'll see, we wanted to share sort of all the logos. So online today, we have representatives, of course, from our principals, our teachers of the year, some of our fellow Pender County agencies are represented. We have elected officials that were invited from across Pender County. So we want to start with really stressing that this really is a community-wide effort. We realize that any decision that we make today will not affect just the school system, but will have ripples really throughout our entire county and all of our communities. As we go through, if I go too fast or too slow, just know, one, we are recording this and we'll make sure that it gets posted. Also, we encourage everyone to feel free to use the chat box. Because we're recording it, we'll be able to keep that transcript as well. We will be going back and making sure that we try to collect all those questions and insights and thoughts. I'll be honest and say up front, many of the questions that you will probably ask are the same ones that we're asking. We'll try to answer anything today that we can give an answer to. But just please understand, there's probably going to be way more questions that we're waiting for answers as well. But the more we can collect, we certainly want to. And whatever we can't answer today, we will absolutely follow back up and let everyone kind of have an idea once those answers come in. So real quick, some of the goals of our presentation today. Three basic ones. So we want to try to give everyone some important background information, kind of where it's coming from and what it's saying. And I'll reiterate the phrase latest guidance and give some examples of that, but we really want everyone to know that some of this is changing literally day by day, if not within a day. We want to let everyone know kind of what steps have already been taken by Pender County Schools and our partners, and that we are preparing for a range of possibilities come August. And then again, we want to try to collect any questions, answer what we can, and also just get ideas and thoughts as we look to August. So just some background information. If everyone remembers, it was around, I think, noon on Saturday, March 14th, Governor Cooper issued his executive order closing schools and closing for instruction. So then we spent about 60 days approximately shifting overnight, quite literally, to online instruction. Our Pender County teachers had to shift within 48 hours from plans that they had to looking at online instruction. Our teachers went really, about 100 or more hours worth of professional development, all told. We had teachers getting Google certifications, spending about 2 weeks trying to really shift and gain a much better understanding of how to do their classes online, which, we really hadn't had a chance to prepare anybody for. We also had to quickly shift some of our instructional practices and grading practices based on guidance from the Department of Public Instruction. So that was our first really big shift. Then in May, some of the first big pieces of information started to roll out about reentry. And the first one, of course, was that schools would start school a little bit earlier than normal. And it was dictated from state legislation that all schools in North Carolina would start on August 17th, with just a few exceptions for year-round schools or those schools that were innovative high schools, such as our Pender County Early College. Pender County had only had one year-round, that's Pender Lee, that was our year-round school. However, that school's leadership team, I think, foresaw some of the summer craziness and had the foresight to probably say, you know what, we're going to switch to traditional for this year. So for Pender County, all of our schools will be opening up August 17th, with the one exception being Pender Early College, which will open up August 6th. The law also said that every school system had to prepare for a minimum of 5 designated days that would be additional remote learning days. And we were also told that our first 5 days of school had to be face-to-face, and that was irregardless of when you started. Doesn't matter year-round, early college or not. We're going to come back to that a little bit. That's causing some concerns for all of us. Then in June, there were 2 guiding documents that we're going to talk about that were issued from the state level to all school systems that started the process for us really beginning to see what reentry would look like. And within that, we were all guided to basically one of 3 possible scenarios with the requirement that we prepare for any of them. And again, one of the things that we are sort of trying to figure out is 2 of those plans would require that some students not start face-to-face. But we have a state law that currently says that we must start all students face-to-face. And that's just kind of one example of the limbo that many school systems are sitting in right now. So the 2 documents, pictures are on the screen there. On the left, on Monday, June 8th, we received what has been called the Strong Schools North Carolina Public Health Toolkit. That was the first thing that kind of laid out all of the health and safety guidelines that school systems would have to follow. There are 59 required steps with an additional 33 recommendations. It's already been revised officially once with several ongoing clarifications, so it has not been something that's been a static document for us to refer to. That is the document also that laid out the 3 specific plans that you may have heard about called Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. And we're going to talk about those in just a second. Then 3 days later, all school systems received the document that you see on your right, and that was called the Lighting Our Way Forward. That was a 134-page document that provided additional details, suggestions, and recommendations for how school systems should try to implement the other 59 required and 33 additional recommendations. It too has already been officially updated at least once with some clarifications that have also come out. So those have been our 2 kind of biggest documents that we received in June that have become what we are relying on to try to prepare for August. So for the Strong Schools toolkit, some things to know. So first, it laid out 3 scenarios that we'll go into a little more detail in a second. Plan A, you will sometimes see nicknamed minimal social distancing. Basically, the idea under Plan A is that everybody can come, but there are some social distancing requirements. Plan B, they sort of term moderate social distancing. We'll talk about that, but essentially it's everything in Plan A plus more rules. And then Plan C would be distance learning, schools closed to instruction. Think sort of similar to what we all faced from March 14th on. The governor's office will determine which plan all school systems use to start. We are not sure what happens after we start. There's no real specific guidance on whether that will be a statewide or local decision, but the governor's office will announce first. And as many of you know, we had anticipated the governor announcing last Wednesday. That did not happen. So we are trying to move forward until the governor does come on, hopefully very soon. And it covers 10 different areas that school systems must prepare for and plan. You can kind of see a list there. It's certainly a wide-ranging area, largely geared toward trying to make sure that everyone is as healthy and safe as possible. Okay, so a little more about the plans for anyone that's not sort of had the luck or the opportunity to be heavily involved. So Plan A, the key there is the emphasis is on prevention, trying to make sure that the COVID virus does not enter the building, really screening for real or suspected cases. All students, staff, visitors, volunteers, anybody who enters a school building would have to be screened with 3 questions and a temperature check. The questions generally surround looking for symptoms. Has the person been diagnosed with COVID, or have they been around anyone that has symptoms or has been diagnosed with the COVID virus. Our local Pender Health Department, and working with them, we will be using a fever indication as 99.9. The state and the CDC have issued some regional guidance, but each local health department has had some flexibility. And so in Pender County, we're going to be relying on 99.9. We're also actually supposed to do this before someone enters any school transportation, including a school bus. So that is a point of conversation. As you can imagine, if you pull up or have ever been at a bus stop that has 10 or 15 students waiting, trying to understand how we would actually do a screening and temperature check has been a point of conversation. So we are working with the state health department and the state Department of Public Instruction at some alternatives to that would also maintain as much health and safety as we reasonably can. But that's basically Plan A. There are additional requirements once students are in the building and staff are in the building. But for the most part of the three, Plan A would remind you the closest to what school looks like. Plan B is all of A plus the requirements that we would not be allowed to use more than 50% of any building's capacity, and that includes both students and staff. And equally, that we could not use anything more than 50% of a bus's capacity. However, I always encourage people to think it's those plus all social distancing requirements. They can think of things like staying 6 feet apart. So it's a little misleading at times, I think, to say, oh, well, it's just, you send half the students. It's not quite as simple as that. You can't have anything more than half the students and staff in a building, but you also have to then implement any of the required social distancing, not just in hallways or the cafeteria, but also in the classrooms and on the bus. So we've received lots of models. If you've read newspapers or watched any news broadcasts from around the state, there are lots of different ways that districts are looking to try to handle a possible Plan B. There really is no great answer. As one teacher and I were communicating, we really are trying to pick the least bad of a Plan B. All of them have benefits, but all of them have obstacles, not just for the school, but obviously the community as well. And part of that is that if we are required to have some students in school, but then some not be allowed at school because of the requirements under Plan B, we would need to implement both in-person instruction and also be prepared for online instruction, kind of mutually running at the same time. All right, then there's Plan C. That's probably the one that I guess will be most familiar. That is basically what all school systems in North Carolina are required to do from the middle of March on. Having said that, there are a lot of things, of course, we want to try to improve upon. We had a little bit of time to plan. We will be turning into the Department of Public Instruction later in July an outline of some of the things that we hope to account for. You can see that's a long list of things that we're going to try to plan for and be prepared for. The thing that I would want our community to know is that what we really hope to prepare is, because there's a chance that at any one time during the year, we might be in Plan A, then switching to B, then switching to C and back again. We are working to develop a distance learning plan that is a little more nimble, a little more regularly involved in all instruction, so that for our students and staff and families, if we end up at any point in time under Plan C or Plan B, and there are aspects of online learning that'll be required, we want that to be a much more natural process, both for our students, for our families, and for our teachers as well. And we also know that long-term in education, the online or distance learning component really is becoming a piece of what we do. So we're trying to go ahead and begin moving that direction. And we've been working hard with our lead teachers, looking at ways to redesign our curriculum documents, update them, make them a little more nimble. We are thinking about things like, of all the things we have to teach, which ones are best done face-to-face, or maybe only can really be done well face-to-face. And we're really trying to be very strategic about how we kind of do that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, Plan C. So what have we been up to this summer? One of the first things I would want everyone to know is, and I'll reiterate what Dr. Hill said, we have been very fortunate to have an awesome relationship with our Pender Health Department, and our county nurses have been amazing. And if you interact with them or see them, please know that they have really been wonderful partners as we try to understand all of the health and safety guidelines that have been coming down. So we've been really starting back since the beginning of June, trying to compile all that when it came out and think about how do we do this in a way for our schools. We've started sharing that out, but essentially what it does is we've tried to take all the guidelines that we were required to under Plan A, realize that if we're in Plan B, it's really many of the same ones. And so we've been trying to design it around a combination of both of those things. And actually we're using it right now. We have started some of our summer learning programs, and we are implementing some of these requirements as we speak, trying to make sure they work well, both for students, for school staff, for our teachers, and for our families. We've had a chance to share it with our Teachers of the Year, and thank you to all of them if you're on. Your feedback has been tremendously helpful. We also shared it with the staff that are going to be involved in summer learning. We're going to start getting their input and make sure it works well for them. We've had a chance to share it with our school administrators, again, letting them see that. Very soon, we're going to go ahead and really start sharing with all of our staff so that we can begin getting that feedback. And the other thing we're already doing is working with our operations division, and we've already begun the process of purchasing all kinds of sanitation materials, physical structures and furnitures, signs, masks, pretty much you name it, we're already in that purchasing process for our buildings, for our classrooms, and even our school buses, so that we're ready to go and implement these safety protocols. So I know you keep hearing us talk about, understanding that things keep changing. And just to give you a couple of examples, because I wouldn't want someone to walk away thinking, oh, well, everything's day to day. That's true, everything's day to day, but there are some real ramifications when we keep doing that. And just in the last week, these are some of the things that have come out that really require significant changes in how we're thinking about moving forward. So you probably have heard that during some of the announcements last week, when we found out we weren't going to be getting clear guidance on which plan, at the same time, though, suddenly masks became required for all staff and all visitors and all students, middle and high school. And the phrasing is when they are or might be within 6 feet. And so for anyone who's ever been inside a school building, there's really rarely a time when you might not be within 6 feet of somebody. That wasn't something that we had initially planned for, and all the work we'd shared so far with our staff and our partners for health and safety, we didn't have that. Well, now we had to go back and kind of change that. And not only does it impact our classrooms, but it's actually anywhere on school ground. It's also on buses or any kind of transportation vehicle. So that's just an awesome example, I think, of just understanding how quickly things are being added and adapted. And then at the same time, there were changes to what our school transportation directors are having to look at. Under Plan B, we went from a situation where we might only have 8 to 11 students on a bus under Plan B to being allowed 1 person per seat, or maybe 2 if it's a family member. But then we still have to work on now looping back up to the mask issue. So just some examples of understanding that when we say as of today or at this moment, it's not really just a sarcastic phrase. There really are some impacts on how fast this is changing. So some other things we've been working on. Again, we've been working with our Pender Health Department to also design a parent form that we hope could help with the issue of screening at a school bus stop. Our state health department reached out to school systems, and they are working with trying to figure out a way where we're not going to have school buses sitting possibly 30 minutes, at a stop trying to screen everybody, or what to do if we would have a student suddenly at a bus stop that we couldn't let on a bus. Clearly, we're not going to leave a student at a stop by themselves. So we've been working with the state and our local health department trying to find a way that we could have parents sign off that they are doing some initial screening themselves, with the understanding that we would then still screen the student again once they get to school. So that's one thing we've been working on. We've been working to order supplies. Our operation department has been amazing at working with us to figure out a classroom sanitation kit, if you want to call it, that would have everything from masks and gloves and hand sanitizer bottles. Even painter's tape was a suggestion so that teachers could have some flexibility to try to mark off areas in the classroom. Sanitizing wipes, and probably more and more. We were fortunate the state did send out some of that equipment for our nurses and 1 or 2 additional personnel that included some thermometers and some gloves and masks and gowns. So we've got a good start to that, but we plan on having a kit like this for every teacher in a classroom. We're ordering thermometers, and we're also trying to look at purchasing some high efficiency temperature screeners so that we can have students rolling accurately but efficiently through checkpoints in the building so that we can get our kids in the building and get school started. So those are some of the other things we've been researching and trying to get going with. All right, and just sort of to let you know how busy we know that the next 6 weeks are going to be, we have been this week really spending a lot of time with our partner agencies and our stakeholders in the school system and around the county, trying to go through some of the documents and prepare. Next week, we will really plan on starting a massive media campaign to get the word out about getting input from staff and from parents in the community, with the anticipation currently being that we think sometime next week we will hear from the governor. On July 14th, we will present the outline of our distance learning plan before we send it to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And then we will immediately turn to really trying to collect and analyze our parent and teacher data. And then, we'll start the process of taking the governor's announcement, we hope, along with what data we have collected from our stakeholders, and look to trying to move forward with a plan for A, a plan for B, and a plan for C, so that whatever happens, Pender County is positioned to effectively go any of those 3 directions. And then our goal would be to have this ready to go for our summer leadership conference when we bring in our school and district leaders. And we want to be ready to go to start that training process and sharing of information. And then it's hard to believe, but basically a month from today, our teachers will be coming back for teacher work days. And our first school opens August 6th, and all of our other schools August 17th. So we have just a little over a week to be ready. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hill. I want to thank everybody. We realize this is going to be a collective effort. There is not a perfect solution, but we will find one that works as best as possible. We know there's going to be increased levels of stress for everybody, our students, our teachers, our families. We know that. We're trying to prepare for that. And just know that we are sharing with districts and representatives across our state that for communities like Pender County, this isn't just about this year. Our communities were still recovering from Hurricane Florence, and some of our families still recovering from Hurricane Matthew. So we know it's basically a whole other hurricane. And thank you for everything. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hill.
Hi guys, just a reminder, if you would please, the chat box is up there. We're collecting any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback. A lot of the work we'll be doing in the next couple of weeks will be basically trying to get the public to understand what you're seeing here today. Their perception needs to be accurate across the board with as much accurate information as we can possibly share. I think that was really out there and pronounced at our last meeting with all our government entity partners and emergency response people who understood that if we do not message this to the public properly, they will create their own perception. And we're afraid that the public believes that when you start school, magically it's just going to be what it was in August and everything's going to be okay. We're calling it, a snow day. We have got to push out what's happening, what's going on with the plans, the latest information we have, and get them in the reality of we're still in a state of emergency. We're going to start school in a state of emergency, and we need their help. So again, I go back to a couple of things that we need to highlight. One is Dr. Aiken referenced similar to a hurricane. This is basically a 200-day hurricane. Is a great way to kind of think about it, to get your head around it. Again, we're working with a population that is a majority of this county's population. So that in itself makes it very important that we all tell the same story. We all have as much the same information when we're talking to people in the public. The other piece of this is our school system's only growing. So this is not, this is going to become an even bigger issue. Right now, we're in the top 34% in population for the state of North Carolina, just for students. We're only a couple of thousand students behind Chapel Hill Carborough right now. And I think that's the image that we need to get everybody to understand. We are a huge population, and there's no way with the resources we have here that we can accomplish this without all government agencies and this community getting behind the school system. And so what we're doing, and you saw a brief clip of it on the last slide, is we're going to put out posters. You'll see them in all the government agencies. You'll start seeing yard signs out in government agencies. We're going to try to place those in all the grocery stores as well. Places we know people have to go during this time. And there's going to be a push for a survey, which will start next week. And what we're trying to do is try to get some feedback from them, basic predictive data that we understand, internet service, what's your goal for transportation, because that way we can start planning with law enforcement. Because in the past, you've seen what's happened on 17 and some other main roads. We only have a few roads across this county. And in the past, we've had traffic issues. Can you imagine what's going to happen when everybody wants to drive their kid to school and not be on the bus? Can you imagine when bus routes have to go 2 or 3 times out? I mean, we're going to turn into, there's going to be major issues. If people have to go home who have symptoms that are 14 days, that they have to stay home, you're going to have students who go, okay, if I cough or I say I have a fever or a chill, I get to go home for 14 days. What are we going to do when we have 10, 20, 30 students walking the streets in the middle of the day on a Wednesday? And why are they there? Everybody needs to understand why they're there, what's going on, and communication has got to be the key. So that's what we're here for today. We can't get enough information. We can't get enough feedback. We appreciate everything you're doing. And all I can say is there's a chat feature on the right side of this. And if you would please type in any questions, any comments, anything you'd like to share with us today. I'll do that. If there's anything you got, we're letting some time go by here for that. But basically, guys, we're recording this. We're going to release this. Everything we're doing is going to go to, if you go to our main page and backslash and put restarting together behind our main URL.
PenderCountySchools.net/restarting together.
That is where we will be hosting everything that we do will be placed there from now on, and a few past items. So the whole idea is that we are having everybody along the way understand what's going on, almost like a documentary of how we're restarting school, or a reality show, if you want to say.
I have concerns about the 2-week on, 2-week off plan as far as providing stability and consistency, especially for our EC students. That's from Mr. Jeffcoat over at Council.
Thank you. That's the feedback we're looking for. You want to address that one?
Yeah, and that's, thank you, Mr. Jeffcoat. And that's the kind of thing that we certainly want people to share with us. Those perspectives are very important. Again, we know there's not going to be a perfect solution short of the day out in the future when this is something we no longer have to think about. We will be, later today, one of the first surveys to be going out will be our staff survey. So that's something that we definitely want our staff to let us know those perspectives and how they impact teachers, certainly across grade levels. That's something we need to know. I know there's a couple other questions coming in.
Yeah.
Ms. Laura wanted to know, for schools that share nurses, is there a possibility with what is happening that schools will get their own?
So I'll answer part of it, and then we're looking for that. The state has indicated a desire for every school to have its own nurse. I don't think any one of us would ever argue with that. I think we're all for that. We are waiting to see what the funding structures behind that will be. I mean, I know that our partners at the Pender County government, they're with us on that. We've shared that that's a concern, and we know that, we're looking for some solutions to that. That certainly needs to be a goal.
And that's a budget issue. There's probably some confusion, but basically a majority of our funding comes from the state and it's line itemed out. We don't control about 80 to 85% of our budget. It's already pre-spent and flows through. Local government provides mostly not housing, but buildings and some services. And then it's so low on federal, it's 5 or 8% pre-described funding. I mean, we have no ability locally to manage to hire new nurses. So that is something we're hoping the state will actually work with us on. I will say that the beginning conversations is that the budget doesn't look promising. And so we're trying to work out some fixes for that locally with our partners, the local government and personnel that we have on site. So that's what we're doing there currently. We will have people designated at every school site. Right now, I think we have 11 nurses.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 18 school sites. What's the other one?
What about virtual academy? Do we lose our funding for the kids?
That's definitely.
So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So, fortunately for Pender County, we had already been really looking at increasing our online or virtual learning presence. So that really started with some pilots last year. And of course, if you've had a high school student or even a middle school student recently, we've been working with the North Carolina Virtual Public School. We've been working with Apex, which is a vendor. So generally, no, actually, as long as we're able to work with the student and they participate in one of those virtual platforms that Pender County Schools has an opportunity to be the lead operator, including our virtual academy. All of those students register with their school, in which case we're able to, they stay and that funding comes with that student. If we have somewhere where the parent decides after a certain number of days, then we do run into that issue. Those first 10 to 20 days are critical for us. But in general, we are able to keep that. Another question.
Do we have enough teachers coming back?
So we are, that's one of the things we're getting ready to investigate right now. I will say, if it's, it helps, our extended school year and our summer reading programs will be up and running, and they are staffed. So that's just shows you, I think, a lot of the dedication that we have in Pender County, that despite one of the most stressful last 10 weeks of school, we have staff who are still willing to go through that, give up some summer and come. I think us releasing the information about our health and safety protocols has helped and will help, and so that's one of the things we're looking at. But that is precisely the kind of data that we're getting ready to start gathering.
Is there a plan to improve internet capabilities on the western side of the county?
So we're gathering data right now through our processes to see what the internet capabilities look like. And quite frankly, with regards to broadband access, it's pretty sparse out on the western side, quite frankly. And it's going to take multiple partners to be able to try to do something, but I mean,
it's going to be difficult.
process.
That's going to be private-public partnerships and a lot of money. That's years worth of work to provide true broadband to a rural area. We'll place a map on the website to show you exactly how sparse that communication is out there. We've done basically we've turned our schools into Wi-Fi areas, parking lots and things like that. We're working towards maybe some options for our buses. So everything that we can possibly do, we're going to try to provide resources for people to obtain. But as far as every household internet, that's beyond, you know, that's beyond us and actually probably beyond local. That's gonna have to be some state, local, and probably some private entities working together over a series of years, to be quite frank about it.
Catherine has a question that's teacher-based. What about MTSS? Legislation says we have to have a fully functioning program for the school year, but all the plans obviously depend on face-to-face instruction. Will DPI be delaying those requirements, or do we have to adapt for the digital possibilities as well?
So for those who may be online that may or may not be familiar with MTSS, is essentially the process by which our schools look at how students are doing, both academically, behaviorally, socially, and we work with our schools around student data to try to design interventions to support the student and continue helping them be successful. Those are great questions. We have our MTSS teams meeting. Some of them met today. We have a large meeting actually Monday to look at that. Whichever plan we're on, there will undoubtedly have to be some ability to be flexible and support students. I don't think we have any teachers I know that would going to be willing to just say, "Oh well." We know how dedicated our teachers are to finding ways to make sure our students can be as successful as they possibly can be. So that'll be something that as we start and as we look at which of the plans we're in, we will be looking at how do we use our MTSS teams, what kind of data can we pull, what kind of interventions can we then implement both either within a building or online or working with any of our partners. One of the things that was really enlightening and positive with our meeting last Tuesday was the number of different agencies in Pender County that were willing to step up and find ways to help us reach out to students, especially if we end up in some kind of blend or all online. They were really offering lots of ideas or even just saying, tell us what we can do. So I think we have a lot of partners that we can look to in the future, but in the end, we will do whatever we need to do to try to help our students be successful.
Ms. Laura asks, under the current guidelines, if we go with Plan A with students back at school and the staff possibly get sick, is there a discussion about how those sick days will be charged? She knows it isn't up to us, but just wondering if there's any talk about that.
Our chief officer of HR is not here, but I'll take that the best I can. We've asked that same question in several state superintendent meetings and with several of our politicians. They're looking into it, whether or not, how is that workman's comp or is that sick days? And honestly, we're waiting on some feedback for that. I don't have an accurate answer. And it was actually, I believe it was asked of the governor today and there was not an answer given. So we're also waiting on that information and that will be shared with staff members as soon as we get some clarification.
Dr. Romero-Lara wants to know, will there be consideration for parents to choose a virtual option if they do not feel comfortable sending their students to school if we are in Plan A?
So in some of the drafts that we have that we're trying to consider for as we reach out to our parents to get some of their feedback, that is one of the questions that we are probably looking at to have included in the survey. Given our online presence and our wanting to make sure that our families stay engaged, that is something that we are absolutely considering, really whether it's Plan A or Plan B. So we hope to get some data over the course of next week on that.
And then Isabella wants to know, would it be better for Pender County if the governor passes the buck to individual school systems and lets them do what's best for them?
We assume that's probably what's going to happen, to be quite frank. I will say, and not being funny and not trying to sound either way, the word local control is thrown around a lot. But again, if I go back to my previous statement with budget, we don't control a considerable amount of the money. We don't control the calendar. So if you don't control money or time, it's difficult to say it's local control. But I will say that plan for that, because what we understand right now is that the General Assembly has said you will meet face-to-face 5 days, the first 5 days. And the governor says that he will decide Plan A, B, or C, or how we start school. I don't know what will work out there. If the governor chooses A, it matches. If he doesn't, then we'll have to see what happens because we don't know legally who we're supposed to follow at that point. But I will tell you that either way, both those comments are you will start school. And yes, I believe it will become a local decision That's my previous definition after that. So that's our best, I guess, evaluation of the situation with lack of more information from the state.
Ms. Edwards says, I'm concerned with allowing parents to make the decision if their child can attend school based on the questions we will ask and temperature screenings. I believe you mentioned earlier, parents might sign a form or something so they screen at home. I have seen in the past, parents will give children Tylenol to mask a fever. I believe this is so they can go to work, which in some cases is very necessary for their income.
Ms. Edwards, that is an understandable concern. So one thing I want to clarify, any work that we do along that line with the health department or Pender Health would only be in terms of getting the student to kind of the schoolhouse gates. Under any of the scenarios, the school ultimately would still do a screening, especially for the temperature check. So that's one of the requirements that's being talked about, is that even if the parent were to sort of attest that, yes, they've asked the 3 questions, have you been around anybody, or have you been yourself diagnosed? When the student hits the door, we would still have to conduct a temperature screening minimally upon entrance and possibly during the day. But it is something, and it's a great example of the idea that it's going to be a community. The school system certainly cannot on our own do this. We need people to understand how important this is, but as you are also correct, we recognize that right now we have families that are not only in emotional stress, but they are in financial stress. Our county was able to do an absolutely amazing job in terms of providing food from March all the way to the end of June, but we know that's really just sort of the tip of the iceberg as financial conditions possibly continue to worsen. But I do want to clarify that no matter what, the schools will still be responsible for that last check. So it was a really good question.
And those are some of the things we're going to work out. We're actually trying to purchase some equipment, but we're running into the same issues as anybody else. If we place items on order, and you can't see them over here, but our chief officer of operations is over here to my left, or your right, and he's trying diligently to try to get the materials here and get the items, but on many occasions, we have been on the order sheet and then kicked off put on backlog because of a hospital may need it or somebody who has priority over the school system.
No other questions yet. If you have any more questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And if you are joining us via phone, you could speak if you would like to. Just take yourself off mute.
All right. So guys, we really appreciate your feedback. There'll be more coming as far as opportunities to hear more. Please visit the website. We're going to start posting things on that. We basically got it up today. We're going to try to keep that where all these things go to from now on. It's like I've told my staff, it's going to be a wild ride in July, and we will be responding to all information coming down from the state. We hope to hear something from the governor next week. He indicated that today, that there would be an announcement next week that would definitely play into our next moves. But again, the one thing we need to know is next week we'll have a survey out, and we ask that everybody please log on and complete that survey. That'll be important data as we move forward in the decision-making process. We do appreciate your time, and again, we appreciate everybody working together with us. This has been amazing with all our local government people, emergency services, our parents, elected officials. Thank you so much.
We do have one follow-up question. Isabella would like to know, what about sports?
So that is a great question. Right now we have instituted voluntary workouts. Our district athletic director, Kevin Taylor, working with our high school athletic directors, did a fabulous job in coming up with a lot of the same safety protocols we're looking at using with our schools. So far, our staff and students have done an amazing job with that. We want to keep our kids engaged. Right now, our main concern is thinking positive and thinking that this is something that we're going to get to do. And so we're trying to get our students in basic sports conditioning. Yesterday, there was a press conference with the director for the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. And the essential message that I walked away with was we're still on hold. I know if you're watching certainly the college world, there are already conferences that are canceling or postponing. No decision has been made in North Carolina regarding fall sports yet. I would anticipate that sometime very shortly after the governor's announcement, you would see probably something coming out from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. Right now, Pender County's intention is to continue offering the voluntary workouts, giving our students an opportunity to see each other, be around each other. I guess now we have to put around each other in quotation marks, but at least be able to see each other and talk to each other, work with their coaches, get out of the house, be active. We will continue that as long as we are able to. And then like you, we are waiting for official news from the High School Athletic Association to figure out what can happen with our fall sports. And I think what you'll see is it'll probably be a season by season. We'll sort of take one season at a time moving forward. So it's a great question. Stay tuned. We will make sure to communicate that out as soon as we know.
I've made a note. We'll actually add sports to the website so that we can update you. Again, for those who on the chat line who may not understand, there is an association who actually controls the decisions for high school athletics in the state of North Carolina for situations like this. So we'll get with Kevin and make sure that happens. We're going good. Once, twice. Again, we'd like to thank everybody. We do have our board chair, vice chair. Thank you for your leadership in this today, guys. We appreciate our board being behind us 100%. Very supportive about getting the community involved. And we just thank everybody that's here today. And we look forward to working with you. And it's going to be a long year, but we'll get through it. I mean, that's what we are, right? Pender strong. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.